Hello, I'm Burke Franklin, co-founder and partner of preppingforthesharks.com. With me today are my partners Fred Parrish
Hey, Bert.
and Robert Browning.
Hello, Bert.
We also welcome our special guest today, Denice Maple. Denice is the owner and president of Live Life Business Consulting. You can find out more about Denice and her company at livelifebusiness.com. Today, our discussion topic is the success mindset. What holds us back and what can we do about it? Denice?
Thank you so much, Burke. And I'm excited to talk about this because I think as far as success goes, people also often forget the qualitative factors that go into success. When it comes to business, we know we need capital, we know we need a plan, we know we need marketing, but what about what's going on here?
So it's mindset mostly.
Yeah, that's a big piece of it, and it can really hold us back when we have false beliefs around our own, about ourselves, around the world, about the world and people in our world. There's many of them, but a big one is fear of failure, and on the flip side, fear of success. You know, some people actually fear that actual success, and sometimes it is the nuts and bolts, not a clear plan. But then, do you have are you staying true to your vision? Are you being flexible as the market changes? Are you innovating as the market changes? Do you even care about your product? You know, like, do you even care about what you're doing? Passion's really important. And I think one of the other big ones is, you know, you can't be successful all by yourself. So where can you enlist
Right.
partners and people to help you to get to where you need to go?
What would you say
Well,
would be like the initial mindset issue? Like, oh, if I do this, what are people going to ridicule me if it fails? Or if I fail, what am I going to do? I remember Oprah said something like, if you're afraid of ridicule or afraid of criticism, you're not ready to go big. And so I wonder, like, where do you start? A person's thinking, I want to start a business. Then what?
Well, then sometimes they get ready to actually go do it, and they can't figure out why they're not making the movement toward it. And it is that fear of looking like a failure or looking stupid that can be bigger than we really realize. And then there's also similarly, you know, just imposter syndrome, which I think really plays into that, is like, who am I to be here? You know, that's for other people. Other people are more, you know, are built to be more successful than me.
I
And
think
that's
of
often so untrue.
I think of imposter syndrome. You hear so many people say, fake it till you make it, and then they make it and they realize they've been faking it all this time. So imposter syndrome seems to be the result of faking it till you make it. But you know, most people, if you're really going to start a business and do something, you have a real idea of what you want to do and why. And so and I think it was Buckminster Fuller said, if you've identified the problem, it's yours to fix, something like that. So if you see a problem, do something. But so going, where do we get this idea of looking like an idiot? Is it just school? You know, you don't put your hand up and you get the answer wrong, or you get an F on a paper, you know, and school just kind of beats us down thinking we're stupid or not smart enough to do it, or what?
Well, that's a big piece of it. I really do. But it starts earlier than that. I mean, it starts when we're kids growing up, and, you know, it's things are changing to a certain extent, but not completely. But at least, like, in our generation, you know, perhaps we had parents that really cared about what the neighbors thought, what their friends thought. So they put that on their kids, which is very natural. We just learn it from the generation before, and we're getting it from all sides through media and school, like you mentioned. But it can really start by how parents react to failure, or how parents react to a child just maybe embarrassing them a little bit, you know, with their
right.
behavior. And it can crush our spirits in some way. I mean, in some ways, in order to operate in this world, we need to know what's socially acceptable and how we can look successful, but it can also really crush our spirit and undermine our confidence. So I think there's a balance there.
So
And
what do
not
you
to
do?
blame all parents, like we're all doing the best we can with
Well, they just
with
got
what
it from
we've
they
got.
got it from their parents too, and it's just passed down from generations. And somewhere
Right.
along the way, it's on us to stop this generational cascade of, I'll call it stupidity for lack of a better term. But so what do you
Yeah.
do next? Okay, we've got all this going on. How do you beat it? How do you start a business? And we're all about businesses, but how do you beat that and just go ahead and do it anyway?
Yeah, I there's a few things that really helped me, and one of the books that was, I would say, life-changing for me was Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway by Susan Jeffers. And
Hmm.
maybe I read this about 20 years ago, and it shouldn't have been such a unique idea to me, but because I felt like I had been successful in a lot of ways, but it made me look at how that fear was holding me back, whether that was asking for a raise or starting a business or whatever that might be. And I started not letting my fear hold me back, fear of looking stupid, fear of failure. Um, and I'd literally say, okay, I feel the fear and I'm doing this anyway because I'm taking a chance on myself.
Yeah, I understand like the definition of courage isn't being fearless, having no fear. It's courage is having the fear and, like you say, do it anyway.
Yeah, yeah. And for some, and even for myself at times, that mindset, that feel the fear mantra and do it anyway, isn't enough for some people, right? And
Right.
so sometimes we need to work with a coach or with a therapist to overcome that, or even for example, some of the business coaching I do is around mindset and how can you get out of your own way and either show up as a leader that is not helpful or not going out after what we want truly in a way that will make us successful because we're afraid to go big.
You
Well,
find
at
that
some
people have,
point, you have
okay.
to develop some level of mental toughness because if you are going to be successful at anything, you have to have that ability to just power through certain things. Obviously, not everything can be managed that way, but in my experience in sports, if you are performing or competing at a high level, everyone is good at the skills. Everyone is good in conditioning. It's that mental toughness. It's that ability for you just to stay focused, do what you need to do. And if you get behind, you've got to get ahead. And
Right.
so you learn how to not let those other things cloud your objective. And again, just get through it and make it happen. And you can tell I'm a little bit older, although this is what accounting will do to you because I'm really only 35. Um,
Right.
but back in my day, um, when I was competing and early in my business career, the world was a different place. And my kids who are now late 30s, early 40s are the very beginning of that everybody gets a trophy mentality, which has just damaged a whole generation of kids. And that to me, and I'd like to hear what you have to say about that, Denice. How do we teach them something different that has been conditioned and just changed the way people look at the world?
Yeah, and going back to what you said about sports, yeah, and we've all been in games or a match or something where things start to go bad and it gets in our head or it gets in our
100%.
teammates' head and it just kind of goes from there. So yeah, just a great example of the importance of some mental toughness and mental resiliency, really. Um, and I apologize. Could you ask your last question again? I wanted to address that, and
Yeah, no problem. I mean, you know, there are a couple of generations now that really have not been taught how to develop that mental toughness. I can't tell you how many young people I know who can't do anything until they talk to their online virtual therapist. And that to me is that's really something that my generation and you know, I guess it would be some people a little bit younger than this, but they have really caused that condition in these last two generations. And it's incredibly unfair what has been done to them.
Unearned reinforcers is spoiling is most psychology books, they consider that a form of child abuse, don't they? Unearned reinforcers.
I don't know about that, but I do see the challenge with that, and I do completely understand, because I feel like a lot of my resiliency did come from playing sports and being on a team and really caring about whether you're going to win and
Right.
excellence and things like that. What I would love to see going, as we evolve as a society is, competition and excellence still being valued, but also a little softer at the same time. Like, I think there's balance. Like, I'm having this picture of one of the Karate Kid movies
Yeah,
where
right.
the sensei from Cobra Kai is just ready to kill Johnny Lawrence for losing his karate match to the Karate Kid.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
And so
there has to be that balance.
how do you teach the resilience that you still need to work hard and you still need to find a path of excellence and put those 10,000 hours in, but also that you're not a complete failure and you're not worthless because you don't win every time, and I think you couldn't argue that there aren't coaches or parents that have that view that winning is everything.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And yeah, I had some of that I had to deal with too, but we have to find that balance between a lot of what is being taught today, because frankly, I can't tell you how many articles I have read recently and news reports about companies just not wanting to hire Gen Z. They just don't want those people around because they're so difficult to manage.
Yeah. And the generation has changed, but largely by no fault of that generation. So companies do need to adapt, and they do need to understand Gen Z and what they're looking for. And I don't know that, again, it's finding that balance, right? Because I do think moving into a future where work-life balance is valued is really important for society and could be really helpful for business. I can't remember the exact statistics. I think it was for every dollar you put into an employee's wellness, whether that's health or mental wellness, you get $4 back in productivity. So you create loyalty, you help them be more focused and really able to succeed. So again, I think it's balance, because we can say like, oh, I wish it was like it used to be, but it's not. It's just not.
Well, and as you say, I mean, we really don't necessarily want it to be exactly like it used to be, but there does have to be that balance, and that is what is missing today.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, at least in my experience, the educators are conditioning these young people to act and perform the way they do. And it's not necessarily their direct fault that they see the world the way they do, but there's a lot of very unproductive opinions they have about that work-life balance. If you're supposed to be in the office at 9 o'clock and you show up at 9:20 and you see absolutely nothing wrong with that, that's a problem.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
If I could think of the top 10 books in success that are historical in nature, almost all of them talk about you are what you think about, and whatever you can conceive and believe you can achieve, that kind of thinking. But the awareness to be able to know what you're thinking about and how through that awareness to change your own thinking, that's somewhat of a Herculean task. And wasn't for coaches and mentors, I would have never found my way home, so to speak.
I can really appreciate that because I share that experience, Robert. And one thing I've been working with my clients on a lot lately is really approaching life and their goals with curiosity over judgment. So, for example, if someone says something that sounds negative to us, or we take it a certain way, which then can undermine our confidence, and then we don't go out there and do what we need to do. But instead of assuming that I'm a bad person, or I don't know what I'm doing, or I'm not good enough, or that person is just mean, right? Like I'm really simplifying this, but coming back with a question, can you tell me more about that? Because I don't see it that way. But often we will, as humans, will walk away feeling defensive, not want to say anything, be angry. Instead, we can really take that as a learning opportunity by either having a dialogue with that person, if we're willing to, or like Robert suggested, taking it back to a coach or mentor.
I've found for some of my limiting beliefs that I've discovered along the way that, one is I look at where did this limiting belief come from? Did it start, was I born with it? No, I heard it from somebody. And my favorite one, it tells my grandmother would say when I was a little kid, save the best until last. The context was dinner. I'm eating something, go eat everything, save the best until last. I'm thinking, okay. And that was great as a 5-year-old, but she didn't say this idea is limited just to dinner. But there I am at the high school dance. There's the girl I want to dance with. I'm going to save her till last. How do you think that worked out? So when I realized, when I heard it in the first workshop I did like 40 years ago, I heard about save the best until last, and I actually heard it in my mind in my grandmother's voice. And the point I want to make is when I realized it wasn't even my idea, it was somebody else's idea. And the other variation of that would be something happens, I interpreted it as such and such, drew some kind of conclusion, like that's the way that is. And I look back and go, how old was I when I did that? What was the context around that? What was my level of awareness and consciousness as a 10-year-old, which not much, or if any at all. And
Right.
so, but the point I make about both those two areas, when I discover where I got the idea from and realize it's not mine, or I got it from some weird conclusion, it was much easier to let go of. But if it was my idea, or I read it, this is the way it is, then it's harder to let go. But I realized it's just that. Wait, that was my grandmother talking. I can rethink this myself, and it made a world of difference. I just wondered what your experience in helping people let go of their limiting beliefs are. There's so many ways where they just sneak in and they pile up.
Yeah, I'm smiling because I just love that, because even with my business clients, because I also have a second business where I'm a spiritual life coach, but in both arenas, I am doing a lot of inner child work. We are going back to the source of that false belief, and we are working to heal it, to be there for that child that didn't get what they needed or got this false idea about themselves or how something could be. And then we work on, after we get out of an actual session, you know, I usually assign homework. Okay, we've reset some things here, but that has been ingrained with some, you know, some of us, you know, 50, 60 years. And it's those pathways are just ingrained. So it takes time and it takes practice, and you got to just keep going after it. So whether it's through affirmations or giving yourself stretch goals and having an accountability partner, there's so many ways for you to break free from that, but it does take effort because it took a really long time, and we've had those beliefs for a really long time.
Yep.
I like Liz Wiseman's book called Multipliers. And the opposite of that is diminishers. But most times diminishers are accidental diminishers because of their lack of awareness of their behavior, where in her book, she clearly and empirically shows that multipliers, which they don't always have to be the smartest person in the room. It's like the tide comes in and everyone becomes smarter, and you multiply all the people rather than keeping your thumb on them, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a different mindset, but they're in her work. Multipliers are 2.1 times more successful than diminishers, and there's a lot of work put into that. I think leadership is a big deal in this country.
Leadership is huge, and leaders can hold companies back and divisions back for these same reasons. And 100%. You know, some people were told that they've got to rule with an iron fist. Well, you know what? If that's how I'm ruled at work, I'm out. You know, I'm not going to stay there very long.
Well, sometimes we got to work for those bosses so we know the difference, because you know, I put in our employee handbook, I said, you know, your employees are not children. They're not animals. You know, they're not your slave labor. They're humans, and they're here by desire to work, and you need to treat them accordingly. Yet, you know, some people just don't know how to do that. So,
yeah.
But I have had, like I said, when I discovered some of those things where I didn't need to have a whole bunch of training afterwards, you know, it was a mystical experience almost, where it's like, wow. And it just disconnected the driver, whatever it was, for me to continue thinking that way. Just like, it just evaporated. I was in another workshop where they did video. And on one of the breaks, they video you in the room doing all kinds of different scenarios. You can see what you look like, because, you know, I didn't know what I looked like I'd lost weight. I had a decent haircut finally. I had a job. I was in my 20s, and, you know, still picturing myself as this fat kid in high school. And I wasn't the fat kid in high school anymore. And it really gave me a tremendous update as to who I am and how to perceive myself. But the real kicker in this thing was on the break. They didn't tell us they were filming us on the break. And I'm standing in the corner like this, biting my fingernails, because I bit my fingernails all my life. Like I'm just standing there. And just to my horror, we came back in after the break, and the lights go down, and they start playing the videos from the break. And there was a good 30 seconds, seemed like an hour, of me all by myself on the screen in front of 50 people, just chewing on my fingernails. And I got to tell you, and I always wanted to be like, I'm from Southern California, so we got to be cool. Everything's got to be, you got to be cool, surf dude, you know that. This was the epitome of not cool. And I saw that, and I stopped biting my fingernails cold turkey right there and never did it again. That was 40 something years ago. And but it didn't take any practice, didn't take any conversation. Nobody said anything. Nobody seemed to care. They just figured, yeah, there's Burke biting his fingernails, you know. I didn't know. I didn't care. I just like, stop, you know, just like done.
Yeah.
So sometimes I think showing people what they look like on camera when they're doing something or saying something, they can look at that and go, oh, that's what I look like. And I even find when I look at somebody else doing something, I think, God, that is awful. I think, oh my God, that's what I look like when I do that. So it's one of those kind of, that's an awareness. It took an acquired taste of awareness to realize that you see somebody doing something you don't like, you just, well, that's you, you know, when you do that. So there you go, versus just getting all cranky about them, you know. Anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And so there's video. A video is so powerful, and you can really see yourselves. And in a coaching session, for example, I'm reflecting back what my clients are saying, because they might not realize what they're saying sometimes. Like you said, I can't, I had a client recently who said, well, I can't just ask someone for help. They haven't heard from me in 10 years, and I haven't been, you know, as successful as I would like to be for the past few years. And I said, so you really can't call that person. Let's talk about that. And it was someone that, she had a good relationship with. I mean, I have former trainees and former coworkers that I met 20, 25 years ago, and they call me for help once in a while, and I'm happy to help them. So these ideas get in our head.
Do you find that people really reveal their thinking just in the way they speak and the words they use? Like you said, did you hear what you just said? People are going, no, they didn't. They didn't listen to themselves on the outside. They heard it in their head. I mean, I say a lot of things that sound great in my head at first, and then when they come out of my mouth and I hear them on the outside, I go, that's not exactly the way I thought it. Or I seem to have a lot more to say than whatever that was, and it came out sideways, or it came out the way I thought it, but it just on the outside sounded nothing like the way I perceived it on the inside.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, having that reflection is super helpful. I just thought of another mindset issue that, we haven't really talked about. And if you'd like me to share it, I will.
Oh,
But,
yeah.
like an abundance mindset versus a lack mindset, or an abundance consciousness over a lack consciousness. I notice, students or clients or just friends, myself sometimes, that if something doesn't go the way we expect or we want it to, we automatically assume that it's a bad thing. Or that if sales are down 1 month, we're, the whole year is shot. And what an abundance consciousness says, or an abundance mindset, is it's not looking at what you don't have, it's looking at what you do have and working with what you've got. And it keeps you from, getting down and getting discouraged. But there's also a line of thinking around the law of attraction that if you are exuding this confidence and you have this energy that you have great abundance in your life, it finds its way to you, either through, the energetics of it, or just how you show up in the world. If you show up as someone who's confident and kind and, and really has something to offer, that's going to attract people just by that.
Do you find people who are, I was just in a recent workshop and they pointed out that it was Justin Sterling, the Sterling Institute of Relationships. He was talking about how relationships start out often with gratitude and appreciation. I love you, you're great, everything's great. And then they devolve into entitlement. And so I wonder, maybe this is your problem with the Gen Zs, Fred, is that they have an entitlement mentality. I can certainly relate to a certain amount of entitlement mentality myself. How come it's not easier to play guitar? That guitar should come to me. I'm thinking, no, the guitar is the guitar. You have to go to it. If the string doesn't bend the way you want to bend it, you got to figure it out. The guitar is not going to help you. So, but that's an entitlement mentality. And to realize you've got to work for everything, and occasionally you get lucky, but generally you got to work for it. But what is your take on an entitlement mentality versus maybe a gratitude mentality or the work ethic?
Yeah, I mean, I really understand the entitlement piece of it. And again, it's like flipping the mindset of it, because we expect that life should be a certain way, but sometimes we find out the things that we didn't get are exactly what we shouldn't have had. Like there was a different way. So there's the entitlement piece, and there's that.
It almost
But
sounds like
yeah,
dodging a bullet. Like that thing didn't happen. It's like I dodged
yeah,
a bullet when by missing that one. So that can happen. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah. But yeah, relating directly to the entitlement piece, like we now are in a world where it's all about instant gratification, and instant gratification isn't real. You know what I mean? Like it's not true. So we have a healthcare system that looks to fix the symptoms, not the root cause. So that's one kind of like, no, just give me a pill. I don't want to have to change my diet. I don't want, I don't want to have to exercise. Just give me a pill. So we've got that model in one place.
We also have microwave ovens. I was thinking about a microwave mentality. It used to be that a baked potato took about an hour,
Yeah.
And now it's a minute and about 3 minutes. And it's like, come on, microwave this thing. Give it to me now. Sorry,
Yeah.
I had to throw that.
And meanwhile, you are radiating your food and putting all that radiation into your body. But I will get off my soapbox on that. But yes, technology, instant gratification, there's a ton of it. And that feels good for a second. Man, that goes away. And think about how easy it is to get alcohol or cannabis or painkillers or whatever that might be, when we're really just hiding our true feelings or our true sadness, or instead of really looking at the things that are truly going to make us happy from the inside, instead of, and so working for something, like you said, like working towards a goal, whether you're a team or it's in school or it's a business, there's a greater gratification of that because you did that. You weren't just given that,
Yeah.
So
Right.
I don't know what the answer is, but one of the things I try to work with my clients who maybe feel like things should be different than they are is to say, well, we actually don't know that, right? Can we just trust that when things don't work out or we don't get what we ask for, that there's a good reason for it, that there's something better for us? Maybe it was just a learning experience, but we have to stop expecting everything to just be perfect, because that creates suffering.
Well, right. And you have multiple views that collide in any setting. It really is rare where you do not have, except in a very close circle of friends, but especially in a professional setting, you're going to have people that are of different ages and different views of the world. And if you believe your view is the only view, in the inevitable outcome of that is conflict, and usually failure follows. So everyone has to recognize that you can't be locked into your worldview, and at least come to some kind of understanding about how we're going to operate.
And to me, family, like it takes a village, and leadership in a company have some different things that work the same way, in that you build a culture or a community within your family or in your business that by nature is less diminishing, and that you are open to multiple voices. You don't have to dominate, like I'm a father of 4 daughters, right? But thank God for my mother, or for my former wife or our uncle. It's amazing. Many times it seems like grandmothers are the big difference maker in the world, in your village. So, and how do you look that? Just like getting older, some people think you're out to pasture now, when this may be the most productive time in your life, that you can offer wisdom. And how do organizations celebrate all of that? It's what is good leadership, and how do we grow our awareness? It's a process.
Yeah, and having a lot of friends in their 50s and some recently looking for jobs, there is an issue with ageism up in the workforce, and I agree with you that a lot of wisdom can be lost because we dismiss something or someone because of how it looks on the surface. And I had an older female doctor who once told me, never let your hair go gray. You'll be treated like a little old, helpless old lady,